Welcome to Posterity Podcast, a discussion of unusual subjects that touch the lives of everyday people from a Christian worldview. This is Mike Carmen sitting alongside Jay Carmen, coming to you with a suntan from my recent vacation to Florida. Jay, are you getting a tan on your staycation?
I am not. I'm staying actually indoors at the moment. You can hear the sound of the once a month train passing through Harrison right now.
I thought that was great. As soon as you clicked your mic on, there was a train in the background. We just couldn't plan that any better, could we?
I know. I should have gone chugga 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 chugga. Yeah, no, I'm staying at home. This is vacation week for me, and I am sitting in the home office here in the mysteriously undisclosed location in Southwest Ohio. But it's just a beautiful day again. You know, we've been fortunate. Every time we've recorded so far, it's been pleasant, sunny, other than the sound of the occasional train, or the one day I think we recorded, we had the people putting on the roof a couple doors down, and you get bang, 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 sound of the occasional saw. So it's been, kind of nice. This is my off week.
There you go. Very good. Yeah, stay-at-home vacations are often the most restful
Mhm.
because you're not preparing to go anywhere and you're not going anywhere and not rushing around and
Yeah.
trying to cram in as much as possible. We went down to, was it East Point, Florida, just on the other side of St. George Island, and it was beautiful down there. We had 3-4 days of pretty beautiful weather, so it was
Did you
nice.
drive or fly?
We drove. It was not. I think it was 9.5 hours when you include stops. It was obviously more than that, but we made an effort to take state routes down and avoid the interstate and Atlanta as much as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
The
but
heavy
it was fun.
traffic, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
it was beautiful.
I don't even know where that is. So you were close to the beach, obviously.
Yeah, if you were to um, looking at the map, if you were to go to the Gulf, it would be further west. If you know where Destin's at,
Mm-hmm.
it's heading in the westward direction. So
Right.
yeah, but yeah, it was beautiful. So well,
Very
what's
cool.
our discussion this week?
Today, for our listeners, we are disclosing our own personal experiences with UFOs. And yeah, sound of creepy music. The the family, our family, growing up, had a little bit of an interest in this. Our father more so than maybe others in the family. Mike and I have continued some of the reading and things like that off and on through the years, but we also had our own experiences. Nothing close contact or anything like that, but we did
Praise the
see
Lord.
things. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I have never been abducted.
Right. Not that I remember.
That's right. Yeah,
So
that's right.
today it's what we're talking about. What
If
happened
you
and when it happened, and
if you can't remember being abducted, that means you've been abducted, right?
so we have
uh,
so both of our listeners just hung up.
yeah, that's right.
Creeped them out. That's it.
Both
Too
of our
much to
listeners.
think about.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
So,
Well, would you like to go first?
well, let's see. Yeah, I have two. Uh, as Mike and I have joked about, two that I can remember anyway. And one happened when I was in grade school. The other happened when I was in college. This first one, I'll talk about just the first one. First of all, I was trying to, I actually was on Google Maps right before we got online here, trying to figure out exactly where I was, and I can't be completely exact, but here we go. When if and of course I have to qualify this by saying that I didn't write all this down in a journal back then, so I don't have the exact date or time. But it was our family practice when I was growing up, and we did this right from the time I was little. and you were born right on up through high school, it was kind of a family thing that most weekends we would take Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, more often Sunday, and we would go visit our grandma as we called her, up in Akron, Ohio.
Yeah.
Grandma lived in different places. Uh, she was a divorcee and lived on her own from the time that she and her her first husband, her only husband, and our grandfather were divorced. And this had to have been probably this was either it was in the wintertime, so this was either late November, early December of '69, sometime between then and the end of February in 1970. I remember that I was about 12 years old, and we had been up for our 4-hour weekend visit to Grandma's house. And it was a Sunday, a school night. I remember that. We were there at Grandma's house all day. And at that time, that would have been myself and our brother Ray, which Mike and I talk about, who's the musician, our sisters Kathy and Cindy. Mike, who is one of our podcasters here, was a baby at the time. There's 12 years between Mike and I. And I remember that at the time, Dad was driving the big white Impala. You probably don't remember that car, but he had a big
No.
white Impala that would seat pretty comfortably 4 kids in the back. And Mike was up front with Mom and Dad. We were coming back on a Sunday night. We had gone up on Sunday, probably around lunchtime or so, and Grandma kept the 4 of us, well, 5 of us at the time. Although I just remember that day, I think she just had the 4 of us. Mom and Dad, and probably Mike would have been little, had gone to run some things or do some errands or just go out for a bit. So I don't remember Mike being there. Mom and Dad came back about 6, 7 o'clock. And I remember that it was wintertime because it was already dark. At the time, Grandma lived in an upstairs. She lived on the second floor of a house in a part of Akron near the University of Akron. I don't remember the exact street. I remember that to get up to her place, you had to walk up an outside staircase. And then above her was an attic that evidently the owner of the house also used to lease out. But at the time, Grandma didn't want anybody coming up through her. To get up there, you'd have to actually come up that outside stair and then go through an inside stair through the part that she lived in on the second floor to get to the third floor. And she didn't want that. So she agreed to take the second and third floors. And that's where she
Now,
was living.
did she live there for several years? Because I have a vague recollection of
Yes.
an apartment that was on the second floor. You walked up an outside metal staircase to get up to.
Yeah, to get up to the second floor, yes. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I,
that
I
was the
didn't realize
place.
there was an attic in it. Okay.
Yeah, and the attic was just this empty space. It would get kind of warm, and in the summertime, if it wasn't too hot, Kathy and I, sometimes Ray and Kathy and I would go upstairs and we would play cards, or we'd just play around up there. We had to have the windows open with the screens in, and of course, Grandma and Mom didn't want us going anywhere near the windows because they didn't want us falling out of the third floor of a house, you
Yeah.
know. But we would play up there.
Yeah.
And I remember that this was wintertime, so we weren't upstairs in the third floor. It was too cold. We had stayed downstairs in the second floor there with Grandma, watched TV during the day, had lunch, just been read books. We always had things to do. Stayed pretty busy. And then Mom and Dad came back around dinner time. We had dinner together just very briefly, and then Mom and Dad wanted to get us back home to Canton, Ohio, where we lived. Actually, we lived for those of you that were listening, we lived on State Route 30. That's where Mike and I grew up, and where our parents lived until they passed in 1997. And they lived on State Route 30 at about as far east as you could go and not be in East Canton. So we were headed back from
I,
Akron.
just for clarity, I don't think it's Route 30 anymore.
It's not. It's considered
Yeah.
Tuscarawas Avenue. They've rerouted. That's right.
Yeah.
They have rerouted 30.
Yeah.
The time we were growing up, State Route 30, which was actually Interstate Route 30, uh, went right through the heart of Canton. And it was mostly a 2-lane highway until you got to the west side of Canton, and then it became actually, I'm sorry, it was a 2-lane road until you got to the west side of Canton, west of Maslin, and then it became a 2-lane highway for
Yeah.
quite a ways. But at the time, we were living on the east side of Canton, not just 300 feet or so inside the East Canton Township line. And so we're headed back. Mom and Dad packed us all in the car on this cold night and headed back home because the next day was a school day. Sometime right before Mom and Dad came back that day to pick us up, I got pink eye. I got something in my eye. And both my eyes started to swell up. And at that time, Benadryl wasn't a thing, at least not that we were aware of. And so I was having like this allergic reaction. My eyes swelled up and turned red. My eyes were almost swelled shut. So on both sides, and don't really know even to this day what caused it, but Mom and Grandma were concerned, and I had been putting cold compresses on it to reduce the swelling, and it was okay. And I missed the next day of school. I remember that, but it was okay enough that I could see. And we got into the car and headed home. We're headed down Interstate 77, and for those of you that are listening, the distance between Akron and Canton is about 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops. And so to come from central Akron, the Talmadge area where Grandma lived, down I-77 into Canton, did not take long. We got off at, I don't remember the exit number, but I remember we got off at an exit that took us not far from the McKinley Monument. And then you would get on to 172, which was Tuscarawas Avenue. I think that's right. Make a left, and Tusk and I-30 were merged right there, and you just go right on through Canton. And it didn't take long to get to Grandma's to go up the highway, but it took about 40 minutes because you had a 20-minute drive through Canton. Can you hear that?
I sure can. Is that somebody's lawnmower?
It's okay. It's actually a group of lawnmowers. Somebody's coming to mow the neighbor next door. They've got a ride around and a big, man, that walk behind.
What you should like hang out the window and say, "Hey man, I'm podcasting."
That's right. Yeah.
Shut that thing off.
That's a big enough walk behind. You could put your kids on that thing, Hang on just a minute. I'm going to shut the window here.
That's okay.
That's a little better. Anyway, we would get off at this exit and then, go through, get off at we were on West Tusk, but you'd actually make a left and go east through Canton to get to East Canton where we lived. On the way home, in the dark, light snow, I remember that, cold, sitting in the back of the Impala, I was seated right behind Dad, who was driving, closest to the window. My sister Kathy was on the other side of the back seat, closest to the window, behind Mom. And between us was Ray and Kathy, who were both pretty young at the time. We're driving down I-77, and all of a sudden, Dad says, he's driving, and he's looking. He's kind of looking funny out through the windshield. He leans forward, and he's looking up and looking out, lean forward, looking up and looking out. And he points and he says, "What is that?" And Mom also can see whatever it is. We cannot. About that time, we were coming up on our exit. So Dad gets off at the exit, which merges immediately with this downtown street to go south to Tusk, where we would hang a left. And he just pulls off right there, just off the exit. And he's not the only one. There are other cars stopped in front of him doing the same thing. They're all stopped, and they're all looking. And off on the driver's side, out through the left, I can see, even though my eyes were kind of still swollen up and bothering me, I could see through the glass an orange light that to my, kind of an orange-white flickering light that to my eye looked like it was probably, about as big as the end of your little finger if you held it way out in front of you. And it was not out over the highway that we had just gotten off of. It was higher up and over that part of Canton. But I didn't have to like turn my head way up to look. I could just almost look straight out and up just a little bit, and there it was. And it was just flickering, like it was, you couldn't tell if it was a ball of fire, but it was just this odd light. And Dad explained later that when he saw it as he was driving south on 77, and it looked to him as if it was higher, a little higher up and over the highway, but it seemed to be coming toward, going almost like it was following up 77. And he thought at first that it was like when you would see the back end of a jet, because of course he was in the military and he'd seen this. He thought at first it was an exhaust, like from a jet airplane of some kind, except that it was getting bigger instead of farther away. And by the time I saw it, it was almost, when he stopped, it was almost parallel with us, and but a little bit higher up and just hanging there. And literally, it was not moving, just flickering and rolling and blah, 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 just
Uh-huh.
this weird light. And then all of a sudden, two very distinct points of bright white light, two balls of light came out of this thing, one out of the top and one out of the bottom. And I saw it, Dad saw it, Kathy had leaned over and was watching it also. Mom was leaned across it. We could all see it.
Uh-huh.
I don't think Kathy and Cindy could see it because I think pretty honestly we pretty much crushed them. They were little and we were like, oh wow,
Cindy
look
would
at
have
that.
only been about 3.5, 4 years old.
Yeah, she probably would not have been paying attention. And I don't think Ray remembers this either. But we could see this thing, and these white balls of light came out of this thing, one at the top. That's what I saw, one at the top, one at the bottom, and literally went straight up, straight down, and then that thing just winked out. And
Huh.
so did the balls of light.
Fascinating.
And I remember we were all like, what, And Mom was like, "Oh, Jay, we got to get out of here." You know. For those
She
of you,
immediately she immediately put a cigarette in her mouth and lit up.
yeah, folks, we joke about this, but there were five of us growing up by the time Mike was a little older, and I think we worked really hard at frazzling our mother's nerves. And she was a smoker, and she would
Aside from
sometimes,
UFO experiences, right?
yeah, she didn't need any help. We would just run her ragged, and she said, just go." And of course, the cars had started to move by then, and we drove on and went home. And we were all kind of puzzled and talking about it a little bit. But then, you know what? I don't remember ever talking about it again after that. I remember telling my friends, "Oh, we saw a UFO or something,"
Yeah.
and they were like, "Oh yeah, sure you did." But that was the that was it. And I don't remember. I'm sure that Dad probably looked through the newspapers. There was probably something in the newspapers, but I don't remember him talking about that. I don't remember seeing anything in the papers afterward.
Right.
And at the time, uh, we were just like, oh wow, that's cool. Whatever that was cool. We didn't think necessarily aliens or anything like that. We just didn't know what it was.
Huh. Isn't it interesting that after experiences like that, people either talk about them or they don't talk about them?
Hmm.
And everybody just, if you don't talk about them, everybody just kind of goes, huh, and then just moves on.
Yes.
And then other times it's the subject of conversation for days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't remember ever talking about that. I did actually try. I've tried a couple of times to see if I could find anything online about that, but now that I think about it, I don't think I tried any of the UFO databases. But I
Oh,
probably,
well, I'm sorry. You should probably try the National UFO Reporting Center.
yeah, yeah,
It would have been up in 1970, I believe.
probably. And this would have been, and for those of you that are listening, that doesn't mean it was available through the internet. The National UFO Reporting Center was a place that you could call into, and they had branches throughout the United States, places that would you could call in, leave a message, talk to somebody, report a sighting. Sometimes people would come out and talk to you.
Yeah.
Uh, and investigate. But at that time, Dad may have known about that. MUFON, I think, were they around at the time?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
NICAP was.
Hmm.
NICAP was certainly around. So anyway, that was my first experience.
And you weren't abducted, for the sake of
No,
clarity.
no. Mom saw
That's
to that.
good.
Boy, we took off like a shot.
Jay, just drive.
Yeah, get home.
Poor mom.
Yeah.
Well, my first encounter was in 1993, in the fall of that year. I went. Jay and I both went to the Cincinnati Bible College, and I went for 2 years from 1988 to 1990, and dropped out for, I don't know, 2.5 years, and moved back up to Canton, and came back in January of '93. And when I came back, you and Barb was technically the dorm parent or the dorm mom, right, in Ryan Hall, which was one of the girls' dorms.
Right.
And you were the director of publications at the time, right?
Correct. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Barb and I both went back to work for our alma mater. I graduated from there in 1982. Barb graduated in 19. And then
She
I can't
she
remember.
graduated first with an associate's degree, didn't she?
Yeah, she graduated in 81
Okay. Yeah.
or
So
80.
when I,
Maybe it was 80.
was it 80?
It might have
Okay.
been. Yeah.
So when I came back, I don't know, I guess I was a junior. When I came back to school, you and Barb and Nathan and Danielle were living on campus in the first floor apartment of Ryan Hall. So this is actually on the National UFO Reporting Center website. If you want to look it up, it's from October 15th. It's actually 1993. On the website, it's listed as 1992. That's an error on my part. But I had returned in January of '93 to finish up my bachelor's degree. And in the following school year, that fall semester in October, um, I guess I was probably up in the library building, either taking a class or studying in the library. I want to say it was 10 o'clock or after. And for those of you that have ever been to what used to be the Cincinnati Bible College and Seminary up on Price Hill, I was walking from the library building uh, down the sidewalk towards Restoration Hall. And to get to Restoration Hall, which was the guys' dorm, you had to go past Ryan Hall, which was the girls' dorm or one of the girls' dorms. So I'm walking along, and the entire city of Cincinnati is to my left. You could very nicely look out over the hill and
Yeah, it was a
just see
beautiful hill, beautiful
yeah,
view.
yeah, you could just see the entire city. And I'm walking along, and I've got my book bag on my shoulder, and for some reason I just looked over to my left, up into the sky. And I'm going to read for you what I wrote on the National UFO Reporting Center. Um, this is listed as having occurred on October 15th, 1992. It, however, actually happened on October 15th, 1993. So, location Cincinnati, Ohio. The shape is listed as a light. The duration is a few seconds. And I wrote a spectrum colored light moves across the sky, um, and from it emerges a white light. In October of 1993, I was walking from the library building towards Ryan Hall on the campus of the Cincinnati Bible College. And as I looked up and towards my left, which meant I was looking towards the Ohio River, the city of Cincinnati, and the northern Kentucky area, I saw a UFO. I saw what appeared to be 7 colors of the spectrum emerge from nowhere, or appear from nowhere, and briefly move across the sky southward in a pattern that I can only liken to a chalkboard line maker moving across a chalkboard. If you were in grade school in the 1970s and 80s, as I was, you may remember your teacher placing chalk in several wire holders attached to a piece of wood they would use to make lines across the chalkboard. So imagine the colors of the spectrum being drawn on a chalkboard, and that is basically what I saw. The colored lines emerged from nowhere and briefly moved across the sky and then abruptly stopped. From them shot a bright white light that moved across the sky in a southwestwardly direction. The whole sighting took a couple of seconds at the most. And that is what I saw. And what was funny was that I had that I just saw a UFO. I gotta go tell Jay. So I literally dropped my book bag on the sidewalk, made a
You
beeline
did.
down the sidewalk, made that left turn down the staircase, and I'm literally running down the stairs. And what was so funny was you were if you when you walked into Ryan Hall, you had a little lobby there in front of you, and then the what do you call that? Where they had the TV. Oh, the lounge area was immediately to your right.
Right, a little door going into this good sized lounge.
Yeah. But if you kept going straight, you went up a few steps to your apartment.
Right, and straight into the apartment. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I run into Ryan Hall and I look to my right, and you're standing there in the lounge talking to somebody, looking at the television. And I just, put my head back straight and just kept running right up the steps into your apartment. And the door was open. And then I stopped and went, oh, wait a minute, Jay was back in the lounge. I just saw him. So I ran back out, ran into the lounge and said, I just saw a UFO.
Yeah,
Something like that. I may have been a little bit more discreet about it because there were
yeah.
students
I
in there.
remember you were really excited. I remember out of the corner of my eye, I saw you literally shoot past that open door there. I don't remember who I was talking to. I was talking to somebody, and
Yeah.
it was you're right. It was after evening classes, and there were a lot of people around, girls and guys, in the lounge. And Barb had the door to the apartment open, and I think the kids had gone to bed, but she was in there talking to somebody, and I had stepped out into the lounge for something, and I'm talking to someone, and all of a sudden I see you shoot past me, not 12 feet away, and go, and then you come right back, Jay. I remember that, and I remember you glancing at me, and then just kept going,
Yeah.
and then came back. Yeah, this was like a cartoon double take.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It really was. Yeah.
yeah.
So I grabbed you and we went back to my book bag laying on the sidewalk. And I'm pointing up to the sky, describing to you what I saw. And I don't remember there being much traffic on that sidewalk that night, but I do remember somebody walked by and overheard me and said, I think somebody just saw a UFO. And she kept walking. She just kind of grinned and kept walking. But I do remember, I don't know if you remember the rest of this or not, but we went back to your apartment and I was talking to you and Barb about it. And Jody and Chris McNeil popped in,
Mm-hmm.
and when we were talking to them about it as well. And I think you called the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department and asked if anyone had reported a UFO. And I don't know if maybe you called the Greater Cincinnati International Airport or not. Um, I don't know if you did that or not, but
I don't remember. It's funny. I don't remember. Uh, I don't remember. Because this was what year did you say? 1993,
yeah, it
fall
would
of
have been.
1993.
Yeah,
So 27 years ago. Yeah, 27 years ago.
yeah,
The kids would have both been fairly young.
yeah.
Uh,
I definitely don't remember Nathan and Danielle being up that night.
no, they would not have been. They would have been in bed. But Chris and Jody used to come in. They hadn't graduated yet, and they were friends, and they would pop in every once in a while at night. And yeah, I'd forgotten about that, but you're right. They did come by that night.
Yeah, I think Chris may have taken some time off too because we actually started the same year, and I think Jody was a sophomore when we came in as freshmen. So,
Mhm.
well, she worked for you, right?
She did for a little while, yeah. And I
Yeah.
actually knew Jody from when I was a youth minister up in the Mount Gilead area. She was on a an ensemble team that came and performed at the church there one weekend, and she was in that ensemble because I remember that would have been the previous summer or fall because we moved to campus in 19 let's see, I moved on campus because I went down ahead of Barb and the kids. I took over as the director of publications in like June of 1992
Yeah.
and lived in the boys' dorm. I would go down 4 days a week, and then I'd go down on Sunday night and come back on Thursday night. And I did that for a few weeks. And I was there from June of probably mid June. I think it was after high school graduations. So mid June 92 to mid August of 92. And then Barb and the kids moved down. But I remember that uh, when after Barb and the kids moved down, of course, all the students came back, and that was when we reconnected with Jody and she had been in that group probably the fall of '91.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she was either a sophomore or a junior at the time that happened. I don't remember that exactly, but But I remember I recognized her and a couple of other people. So
Yeah. So that's mine.
that was a funny one. The look on your face, man, you were flying. I just remember that you were flying it through that door and just
Oh wait,
kept
there's
right on
Jay.
going.
I just
Yeah.
missed him. Well, that's all for this episode of Posterity Podcast. Stay tuned for part 2 of personal UFO experiences as soon as I can get it edited and uploaded. Have a great day.